Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
All right, it's Tuesday night in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 6:30 Central Time. You know what that means? A TV tradition. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. All right, Rodney, you keep up with this better than me. Going into this football season, how many years is that going to make?
24.
21?
24 season.
Did we start in? Oh, yeah, we started in 2000.
Yeah,
So it'll be 24 season.
Yeah.
23rd year.
Right.
How about that?
It's a long
I don't know
time.
how many TV shows that have made it this long. We must be doing something right. Well, one thing we do right is we talk about Alabama football a lot. And you know what? That keeps us on the air, I think. Let's get to Alabama football, Rodney. We're in the middle of spring. Practice number 6 was on Monday. Practice number 7 tomorrow. We're just 18 days away from the spring 8A game, and then on Friday we have the first scrimmage of the spring at Bryant-Denny Stadium. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about football. Alabama has a lot to look forward to this week. As I said, this is practice from Monday when they were in full pads, at least during the video session from Crimson Tide Productions. They were inside. Doesn't mean they didn't work outside some. But everybody's focused on the quarterback competition, Rod. As I told you, I can't tell you how many, well, I can. I've had numerous questions about it, and some people not liking the answer when I tell them that I don't know who the quarterback is going to be at this point. You know, they want to know, and I just don't think we know. On my radio show this morning, it was a topic, and you know, there's a feeling by some, and I know you've even said this might be a possibility because of the portal, that one of these guys could leave after spring. I still feel like, and talking about Milroe and Simpson, I feel like both of them are going to see through the spring and come back in the fall. That's just my opinion. But I want to mention this too, Rodney. Let's don't count out these two freshmen, Dylan Lonergan and Eli Holstein, straight out of high school. But I did finally talk to somebody who has, had some insight and gets to see some practice. And he said, Gary, let me tell you, these two freshmen are the real deal. Not saying that they're going to be the starter, but they can really play. So you got 4 quarterbacks. I know the two, returnees in Milroe and Simpson lead the way, but Holstein and Lonergan aren't out there just to get reps. They feel like they can compete too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of having them in here early, Gary. They have an opportunity to get acclimated to the program, obviously. Those 2 young freshmen you're talking about, Holstein and Lonergan, both those guys have been very impressive. Both have really, really strong arms, very smart kids. I think they're guys that, as they develop, have a chance to be good quarterbacks. And talking about Milroe and Simpson, again, I'm with you, Gary. I mean, who really knows who's going to end up the quarterback? I think the first step, or at least in terms of the feedback that we get, probably will be this scrimmage on Friday. We'll maybe could gauge some things by that. But, look, it's going to be a first scrimmage, and usually the defense is going to be a little bit ahead of the offense. So it could be a tough time for those 2 quarterbacks. People want answers, but Nick Saban has said since he got here in 2007, and he continues to say it, spring is about development, player development. We're not out there looking for a depth chart. We're not trying to name starting lineups. We're trying to develop guys. And he said last week, Rodney, I found it very interesting that, hey, listen, we're splitting them up on 2 fields. We're splitting up the coaches. We're not getting just the first and second team's reps. We're getting the third team and fourth team guys reps too. He said we're trying to rep everybody because we're trying to teach and we want them to learn. Now, I know Friday in the scrimmage, that'll be a little different scenario. But for the most part, spring is about teaching and learning. And he made it clear that goes for everybody that's on the roster. Yeah, and I think when you look, just take the offensive line, for example. I think they only have 12 out this spring, which is kind of a low number. All of those guys getting a ton of reps, ton of development. Talking to some people, they think the offensive line has a chance to be the best since 2020, potentially. That's good news, certainly. I think Alabama, we've talked about this. They want to become more relentless, have that relentless mindset that, I think we became accustomed to with Nick Saban. Maybe they didn't have that the last couple of years, but I think this has been a really physical spring. Yeah, and one difference in spring now, and again, we won't be at the scrimmage, but we'll try to get some information. It wasn't that long ago that all these signees would still be in high school. Right. They'd be finishing up their prom and their baseball season or whatever it is that they were doing. Now most of them are here, and, I'm sure there's some anxiousness for these junior college and freshman signees that are coming in, and even though they've had 7 practices under their belt by the time they scrimmage on Friday. Still, this will be the first time ever for a lot of these guys to be in this scenario, going out there on a field with officials and simulating a game type of setup. Think about the advantage doing that now versus coming in August.
Absolutely.
Gives the newcomers a much greater opportunity to contribute next season.
All right, Rod, this is a question that's tough to answer, but again, because we don't get to go to practice, I want to continue to stress that to people. We don't get to see any of it. We get one video clip a week. We do talk to some people, but just, some guys that you might, if we were there Friday, be looking out for in this scrimmage.
There's a lot of them because there's so many newcomers, 26, I think. So, no, there's really a lot. But, again, everyone's interested in the quarterbacks. There's certainly some new offensive linemen, some guys that are getting opportunities. I think, to me, I would really want to see some of these running backs because I do think Alabama's going to – I don't really want to say emphasize the run game more. I think they want to run it better. I think they want to be more effective than they've been. So I'd love to see some of these running backs, whether it's Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, obviously Jace McClellan's back, Roydell Williams, whatever amount he can participate right now. Certainly would like to see those guys. How about the transfer C.J. Dupree at tight end? I think that's a position that could be vastly improved this year with some of the guys that they have. Wide receiver, everybody wants to see Malik Benson, the JUCO transfer, and then some of the younger players, the way they developed last year, Isaiah Bond, Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, and you've got others that are returning, obviously Jermaine Burton and Ja'Cory Brooks. On the defensive side, a lot of young defensive linemen would love to see. How about some of these new inside linebackers? Justin Jefferson's the JUCO transfer. Everybody's buzzing about his speed. Trez Marshall coming back, transferring in from Georgia. That's another guy everybody wants to see. And to me, defensively, it's the secondary. You want to see how those guys are developing in the secondary.
Because you don't get a lot of information and we don't get to see a lot. When Alabama football Twitter account puts out a clip like this, it goes viral in a hurry. That was Jalen Milroe to Ja'Cory Brooks, defended by Kool-Aid McKinstry. Everybody was perfect on this play. Perfect throw, perfect catch, perfect coverage. But like they say, you can't defend a perfect throw. Listen, it's one clip. It's got that neat Jim camera going down the sideline there. But, buddy, this grabbed a lot of attention, and it really was a beautiful play.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, that was a tremendous catch. I mean, a lot of concentration. We've seen Ja'Cory Brooks in the past.
I've seen him do it before when it mattered.
That's right.
How about the Iron Bowl a couple years ago?
You're 100% right.
Yeah, he's a guy who I think with his experience, Rodney, and his propensity for coming up in the clutch could have a huge year this year.
Yeah, and I like his size.
Yeah.
I think he brings that experience. He's tough, so I really like that. And again, I think this wide receiver core has a chance to be better.
Yep, and they'll need to be because the SEC is going to be really tough. All right, now it's time for Coach Talk. Last week, Alabama head coach Nick Saban was asked about the offensive balance, being more balanced. Alabama's still been pretty balanced, but you know what? He says you never really get a 50-50 split, but the Crimson Tide could lean more heavily on a power running game this season while working in and breaking in a new starting quarterback.
Bryce was an outstanding player, and we wanted to have him do what he could do, but I think if we have better balance, I think it'll take a little pressure off the quarterback. So I think the offensive line has done a good job so far. I like where we're heading and what we're doing. I think the scheme that we have to run the ball is well tied together. So hopefully between that and play action passes, we can make a few more explosive plays, not just rely on dropping back all the time. I think that would be very helpful.
Rodney, quick reaction to that. Bryce Young was special. Not saying that one of these quarterbacks won't be special, but we don't know that. Obviously, he's one of the best to ever do it, but I agree 100%. I think you can lean on that running game while that quarterback's getting comfortable.
I think balance. Balance, being more physical. I think we've seen that running the football physically, Gary, still works.
Yeah, Alabama was pretty good last year. They ran for 195 yards a game, which was 7 in the SEC, right in the middle. But I think they'd probably like to get that number up maybe into the top 5 this year. We will see. All right, moving on to basketball. Crimson Tide point guard Jaden Bradley, a former 5-star recruit, has reportedly entered the transfer portal. He started 22 games this past season, played in all 37. I thought he was doing really well. Came out of high school, as I said, a 5-star. Chose Alabama over Arizona, Gonzaga, Kentucky, Florida State, and others. Averaged 6.4 points, 2.6 rebounds, and 3.1 assists. But his playing time went down late. He said late in the season he asked Coach Nate Oates to start Javon Quinterly beginning in the SEC tournament. Now, Rodney, this was again a highly touted player, and Alabama won the SEC regular season, won the tournament championship, went to the Sweet 16, number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, but Namari Burnett in the portal. Jaden Bradley in the portal. Miller and Clowney, pretty sure, gone to the draft. Also, Charles Bediako and Javon Quinterly are checking out their draft status. There could be more departures. Obviously, Jaquan Walton is transferring in from Wichita State. They've signed 4 players, but I think Alabama's in a good place with Nate Oates. He's going to win. But this roster next year is going to look a lot different.
And I think that's going to be the trend. I mean, just with this portal the way it is, it's not just Alabama. I mean, this is going to be kind of nationwide.
It is. But like I said, though, listen, the last 3 years, Alabama's been to 3 NCAA tournaments. They've won 2 SEC regular season championships, 2 tournament championships. A lot of disappointment over not going further in the NCAA tournament, but this program is on solid ground. All right, still to come on Tighter Insider Television. Montana Fouts earns another SEC pitching honor, and Crimson Tide football recruiting for 2024, also for 2025. And this young man doesn't graduate until 2025, but he looks like he's already about a junior in college. We'll have the latest commitment for the Crimson Tide. Plus, we get in your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen, or you can even tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tighter Insider TV. Welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. He's Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris, and I bet you know who you are. Alabama football is off to a great start with the 2024 recruiting class. Had the number 1 class in 2023, Rodney, but as we said, it never ends, and you're now multitasking when it comes to recruiting. Usually you kind of recruited 1 class at a time. Now you recruit 2 or 3. 2025 4-star offensive tackle Mason Short of Evans, Georgia. I mean, let me tell you something. This kid looks the part. He announced on Twitter Sunday that he's committing to Alabama, 6'7", 290. He's going to probably weigh about 325 or 330 in college. Had offers from Florida, FSU, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, pretty much everybody. But Rodney, I had you on my radio show Monday. I said, sometimes you're a little leery of these 2025 commitments are a couple years out. But he said it felt like home. He sounded very firm in his commitment, even though these other schools are not going to quit recruiting him. Yeah,
Georgia was really a little bit surprised, I think, that he made that decision. I think that certainly they've recruited him extremely hard. And, Gary, we've talked about this. The success that Georgia's had, obviously back-to-back national championships, and Alabama keeps going into that state. You've got Justice Haynes, who is the son of a former Georgia great, who signed last year. Also, obviously, Caleb Downs, a 5-star player. Dylan Lonergan wasn't necessarily highly recruited by Georgia, but a lot of other schools out of that state. And then now Mason Short, of course, he's 2 years away, as you mentioned. Going to be a real battle, I think, down the road. But to be able to go into Georgia and recruit the way Alabama's recruiting is really impressive.
Yeah, we got some clips of him here. And I'll say this again. Looks, you still got to go out and play. But to be this young and already have this physique, I mean, he's kind of ripped up for 290 pounds. I mean, impressive physical specimen.
He really is. I mean, a guy that you talked about the frame. Look, I think Eric Wolford's making it pretty clear here. You start looking at some of the guys that they've brought in, the size factor, Caden Proctor, Wilkin Formby, Miles McVeigh, Olas Alinen from last year, Rock Montgomery's a really big kid now, Mason Short for 2025. He wants guys with size, power, the package.
And he joins Saraland wide receiver Ryan Williams as Alabama commits in class 2025. Ryan Williams might be the best player in the country for 2025. He is electric. All right, Rodney, let's move on and let's talk some softball because Montana Fouts is still really good. She showed Missouri. Of course, she owns Missouri in her career, but she went up there in Columbia on Friday and Saturday and pitched not just 14 innings, 16 innings of shutout softball. 7 innings on Friday, then 9 innings on Saturday. Won both games with shutouts. That's enough to get you the pitcher of the week. We're watching Alabama on offense here, but believe me, Montana Fouts showed out against Missouri. And then, of course, Alabama, though, did not sweep the series as they lost on Sunday, but Fouts wasn't in the circle. All right, let's also talk about baseball. Crimson Tide softball hosting South Carolina this weekend. Baseball is a team that, they've lost 2 out of 3 in every series, so they're 3-6 in the league, but 3 one-run losses. They went to Arkansas Friday night and pounded the Hogs 12-1 before losing a couple heartbreakers on Saturday and Sunday. So this team is still a pretty good team. They got a chance this weekend, Rodney. Mississippi State is horrible this year. They're 1-8 in the league. They come into Tuscaloosa on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Alabama needs to win that series, if not sweep it. Well, still to come on TITV, the Alabama Gymnastics team finished up the season at the NCAA Regionals over the weekend. We'll have more on that when we come back. And we'll be getting to those phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-9882. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, next right here on WVOA 23. Alabama Gymnastics competing Saturday in the Norman, Oklahoma Regional needed to finish in the top 2 to advance to nationals. Didn't happen. The Tide finished in 4th behind OU, Kentucky, and Ohio State. Oklahoma and Kentucky advanced to the NCAA championships. Man, I remember when Kentucky was awful in gymnastics, but the sport's really grown. As an individual, though, Luisa Blanco will compete in the NCAA championships for Alabama because she qualified on the uneven bars, and she will give it a good go. So Alabama, good year, but not making it to nationals is a little disappointing. All right, welcome back into TITV alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris, and we're going to jump out on the phone lines. And first up is our pal up in Hubbardville. Caleb is with us tonight. Hey, Caleb, good evening.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing well, man.
Hey, springtime's in the air, and I know that means it's not long to A-Day.
You're right.
But my question is, Gary, who are we in on in the transfer portal for basketball? Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Caleb. Well, they've already got Jaquan Walton committed out of the portal from Wichita State. Signed with Georgia, played there a semester, went to Shelton State here in Tuscaloosa, signed with Mississippi State, never made it to Starkville. Had a great year this past year for Wichita State. He's coming pending either graduation or qualifying to be eligible for this season. Denver Jones out of Florida International is a player, another Alabama kid that Alabama's interested in, Auburn's interested in. So that's one that's coming and one they're really interested in. All I can tell you is, Caleb, they got a list. I promise you, every coach in this country has got a portal list. And so those are just a couple names, but I imagine. He said, who are they talking to? Rodney, I bet they're talking to 15 or 20 guys.
No question. They're, looking at a lot of guys. You mentioned that Denver Jones, obviously, like you said, Gary, I think Alabama and Auburn in that very strongly. Kind of seems to me, things I picked up is maybe Auburn has the edge right now, but you never know.
Yeah, I really like Jaquan Walton, though. 6'7" wing, long, can rebound, can shoot. As I said, he was Wichita State's best player this past season, and that's a good program. So hopefully he'll be eligible to play here at Alabama. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk with our good friend Bill Taylor. BT, how are you?
I'm doing good. Rodney, how about y'all?
Doing well, man.
Gary and Rodney, my question is about the transfer, what y'all were talking about a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the guys that transferred, you think some of them will come back, or how it's going to work for next year?
Yeah, BT, I don't think the two players in the transfer portal, Burnett and Bradley, are coming back. I think they're gone. I don't think that, obviously, Brandon Miller and Noah Clowney are coming back. Now, as far as the draft, I think Bediako should come back. He'll get some feedback. I think he will. And Javon Quinterly, we know he's an older guy, but I still think there's a chance he could come back. As far as if there's going to be anybody else that goes into the portal, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think probably, just my guess would be Quinterly and Bediako do come back. I think you may have some other guys that test the NBA. There's some discussion that Sears may look, but I think right now, Gary, Alabama basketball, as you said earlier, I still think they're in a good position. Even though they are losing some players, I think they've got 10 guys. They feel really good about being in the program next year. And the question about the portal, they'll fill those other 2 or 3 spots with portal guys.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, this is the new world of college basketball. You can go from bad to good or good to bad real quick, depending on what happens with that portal, man. It's the years of having players at these major programs stay 3, 4, 5 years is probably not realistic anymore. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television. We're going to keep it rolling right here with more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the phone number 205-348-9882. Let us hear from you. Also, we'll have our email of the day coming up as well right here on Tider Insider Television. Earlier today, Alabama men's golf wrapped up its regular season with another solid finish, finishing 6th in the 18-team Mossy Oak Collegiate Tournament over in Mississippi. The Tide surged up the leaderboard on the final day thanks to Kenan Claycomb, who finished the tournament 9 under par. That comes on the heels of Alabama winning last week at the Linger Longer Invitational over at Mercer University in Macon, Georgia. So Alabama's playing really well as they get ready for the SEC Championships at beautiful Sea Island, Georgia on April 19th through the 23rd, and the Tide looking to get back to the National Championships this year. All right, let's get to our email, and it's the email question of the day brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. KDM Service Corporation serving your family like our family. For all your heating and air conditioning needs, it's KDM Service Corporation. This is from Jim in Nevada. Rodney, he sent us this one for about 3 weeks in a row, and we're finally able to get it in. It was recently announced that Aubrey Barnhart was taking a break for softball. Is there any update on her situation? Jim, all I can tell you is that she hasn't come back. And she's out of Tennessee, but she was best friends, or is best friends, with Megan Bloodworth and Dallas Goodnight, two of the players that transferred out from Alabama last season. So Coach Murphy at the time just said she was taking a break from softball. She hasn't come back. My gut instinct just tells me that she won't be back. So, that's about all I can tell you, but we will see. All right, let's get to another email, and this is from James right here in Tuscaloosa. And I think this is a really good question, James. Should Alabama put a statue at the Walk of Champions for former AD Mal Moore? We had to shorten this down, but he went on to explain, I think 10 national championship rings that Coach Moore has, and of course he brought in Coach Saban. I understand the sentiment, I really do. And I think maybe somewhere else on campus, maybe over there at the Mount Moore Athletic Complex, put a statue. Not on the Walk of Champions, though, James, and I'll tell you why. That is for national championship winning head coaches. I mean, there's been a lot of great assistants, a lot of people in administration who had a lot to do with national championships, but I think as many as Alabama's had, you just have to reserve that for your head coaches.
Yeah, Gary, look, I think it's a great idea. Mount Moore does deserve a statue. I agree with that. Hadn't really thought about that. That's a great suggestion. Where? I really don't know, but somewhere on campus, somewhere, there should be a statue of Mal Moore. Of
course, Mal Moore passed away 10 years ago last week. Time flies, and man, I tell you, he's missed. I'll say this, you and I got to know him pretty well. Class act. Forget all the football and athletics, just a great person. All right, still to come on TITV. We're going to come back and wrap it up for you. A beautiful evening here in Tuscaloosa. Stay with us. All right, I think we had a good show tonight. Glad you were with us. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Reminder, you catch a replay tonight at 10:30 here on WVOA 23, or find it anytime at WVOA23.com. We're going to leave you tonight with some Alabama men's tennis video. Thanks for watching Tider Insider TV. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next Tuesday night right here on WVOA 23.